DRS from now onwards. No DRS.
Hi guys, welcome to today's edition of No DRS podcast. You already know your favorite rappers are here. My name is Lotanna, and
Trojan, how's your break? How's the break? What do you do with the break?
I did go to Wireless. That was really fun. Seeing Drake. But yeah, mostly it's just been really hot. How about you?
Well, went to see the F1 movie. So this was a nice movie. Well, if you are a diehard F1 fan, you will frown upon all the rules. You can't. I don't drop any spoilers, but you can't do 70% of what Sonny Hayes did. But if you are more into the storytelling, so it's a nice story. I think it's more about life than F1 itself. I think F1 is like an appendage to the story. Well, yeah, it was nice. What do you think?
Uh, so I have a lot of thoughts about the movie. I think first of all, I really like the story. If you could get past the fact that Brad Pitt is pretty old, I mean, of course, the storyline made it such that we needed someone old, anyways. But like really old people don't drive F1 cars, even though we have some old age people. We have Fernando, we have Lewis. But I think really old people don't quite drive the cars today. I like the storyline. I like the storyline a lot. And I think one of the things I want to one of the chatter I had during the promotion of the story was there's this lady now, I've forgotten her name. The name is gonna be put on the screen. She was in Bridgerton and she was supposed to be what is Dempsey's character name again?
Joshua Pierce.
Yes, Joshua Pierce. He was supposed to be Joshua Pierce's love interest, but for some reason the director cut out most of those, and then the storyline then became a mother and son relationship, which is not that bad. However, in like F1, a love story would have been more plausible because you see more partners of people in the paddock than you see their parents. You see more partners getting involved in their day-to-day life than you see their parents. So they would have tried to make that at least close to believable by going through that storyline. I don't know why they decided to do the mother. Like we saw parts where the mom of Joshua Pierce confronted Sonny, and like those kinds of scenes you imagine never happens in real life, right? And I think it was a great watch for new F1 fans and also OG F1 fans because I think he had a lot of things. He had a lot of adrenaline things, like the first sequence, for example, the race. I think it was supposed to be a kind of Le Mans race that the movie started with. The sequence was really good. It brings you in. You see the action. You see a lot of familiar things. You see some of the familiar F1 sayings. Like there's a lot of familiarity, and I think having Lewis Hamilton being one of the producers was an amazing decision because you could see some things, right? For example, you hear Hope is new strategy, right? You see the pit stops happen. You see testing in the facilities that people use. Like some things actually really keyed into how things supposed to be. Of course, some things would, not everything. Like at the end of the day, it's still a movie, and it's mostly catered towards bringing more people into the space of F1, and a lot of people are getting into the sports also. So I think it was a really amazing movie. It also had soundtrack. Did you go through the soundtrack?
Yeah, I did. I did. I think the soundtrack's really good. I think one thing I did more was like spots, like tiny details. Like a good example was Apex HQ was McLaren's MCT.
Yes, well, McLaren's
So I was
MC.
like, okay, they really went deep. This is deep, but yeah, it's like I said, it's nice. It's a nice movie.
The next thing we should talk about is one of the biggest things that's happened in a really long time. You know, Christian Horner has officially been sacked from Red Bull Racing. What are I mean, I have a lot to say, but I just want to know what are your first thoughts when you woke up to that news? What were you feeling? What did you think?
I think I had two feelings to be honest. I was like, was he fired because he was unable to keep Max, or was he fired so they could keep Max? So the thing is, we'll probably find out in a couple of weeks.
Days, maybe. Days, maybe.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. And knowing like Honor is such a big personality in the sports. I don't think he's done with F1. We love Fred, but he could be going to Ferrari. Like like to me right now, he's a wild card. I know, like, yes, he had like, the allegations, last year, I think,
Mhm.
right? But he's still a very hot commodity on the paddock,
Yeah,
and a lot of teams will be dying to get him as one of them. So yeah, he'll be fine. Either way, he'll be fine. Like,
I think I think it was a huge thing to have happened, right? Like the thing that you would imagine would have resulted in the sack of Christian Horner for me was the inappropriate
yeah,
relationship with an employee at Red Bull didn't, and it was performance that did, right? There's been all of the theories about like, how people should be more people should take more accountability for their actions. Some of power dynamics, you hold power, you shouldn't be indulging in some kinds of relationships that he did indulge in, and the team investigated him and exonerated him with as little as nothing, no, not even a slap on the chin, not even a suspension, nothing, right? And so it was quite interesting that this is where they act, and when you think about the legacy that Red Bull Racing has built, Red Bull literally started off about 20 years ago. I think 20 years and some months now. And it started with Christian. Like Christian has been the only team principal at Red Bull. He started the team, he built the team to where it is today. Really, really, really from nothing to a household name in motorsport racing today. And him living on the terms of performance was, I think, incredible, and I think there's just going to be more to that
yeah.
for
I don't
us.
think it's performance to be honest. Like it's something else. Like I said, it's something else I'll probably not know or find out or make deductions in a couple of days or weeks, right? Because yeah, performance is really weird. Because if you're going to say performance, you're going to bring the turbo hybrid era, where at least for the first couple of years, Red Bull wasn't like a challenger to Mercedes, right? Or what year was that where Ferrari was the closest team to Mercedes? I think that was 2019, I think, right? So I don't think it's a performance issue. I really don't think it is.
And
Yeah.
I personally think it was abrupt. I mean, we all know just Verstappen has had issues with Horner all this.
Yes.
And we all know that they don't, but like again, teams work with people that are at opposite ends. Like this is not the first time, this will not be the first team that people don't like each other. They had to work together for the same goal. Like it's quite surprising that it's happening now. And this leads me to the next conversation I want to have. But before I go there, let me just finish talking about Honor because I think there are rumors. Of course, you mentioned he might be going to Ferrari. Ferrari has approached him before. They might do it again, especially with the way the team is now. It's almost like, there's no bearing. There's
Perfect time.
a lot
This
of things are happening in Ferrari at the moment that is, I would just describe as crazy. So yeah, the board also really makes, I would say, quote unquote, snappy decisions. So it's not going to be beyond Ferrari to do, right?
you thought
There's
it was
also
untouchable.
yeah, there's also news about him trying to join the group of companies that want to buy out Alpine. And Christian Horner has a like he has a lot of money, and so like he could probably venture into that. And if he does venture into that group of investors, of course he'll be the most experienced person that would be nominated to lead the team. So there is the goal of starting again that might potentially also happen. But yeah, after Horner, let's talk about George Russell and Max Verstappen.
Ah,
What do you think is the
Ah,
future of these two young lads on the grid today?
hear me out. So I've had a couple of days to think about this,
Big play about it.
and here's what I think will happen. Max and George will become teammates. Bottas goes to Cadillac. Then Kimi becomes the third driver for Mercedes.
Okay. Because the person I wanted to say is Kimi signed a multi-year contract. So I think when she say he's going to be third driver, it makes sense because again, that means he's still on the Mercedes payroll and Mercedes can afford to do that, right? Hmm. Let me react to that. It is not outside of the bracket of what Toto can handle, having two hot heads being in the same team. He's done that a couple of times, over two times now. Luis and Nico, um,
Bottas.
Luis and Bottas, like he's done it a lot of times. Even though Bottas, I don't think Bottas was that much of a hot head. I
He
would say,
wasn't, but he had his moments where
yeah,
he was.
of course he had his moment. Like every second driver has moments, right? But I think if there's a team principal that could handle two hot heads, it is Toto. I really, really agree Toto can. And so that is an interesting thing. But then when you consider the fact that George is currently in this season one of the best drivers on the grid, and he's also scored the best possible points for Mercedes this year, more than he's done probably all of his career, actually, right? And he still hasn't gotten his contract because he can get his contract while Mercedes still continues to pursue Max. We know Toto is in love with Max Verstappen. So, and that is the only counter argument I have for you. This cannot be a Max and George in one team because Mercedes could easily sign George and still get Max, saying
You
that
know,
he could become a third driver, right?
you know,
Within that scenario, I don't think it's plausible. But
but I think Toto doesn't want to give George a like, hey, so I'm signing you for the next 5 years. If he ever signs Max, and let's say he's trying to keep George, what I think he would do is offer George a 1+1.
But they have. So I read news that they already offered George a 1+1 and he rejected it. Why
Obviously, like the
1+1? Next year is going to be the most chaotic year ever in probably modern history of F1, right? Because rules are changing, everything's changing, everybody's rebuilding cars from scratch, right? And so, like, next year's a year of uncertainty. And what you need in the year of uncertainty is we know in the year of uncertainty, one team would immediately emerge, every other person would be so far behind, and it would be years of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting till figuring out what is going on. No sane driver will sign a 1+1 where they are very sure the next 2 years at the very least are going to be years of uncertainty.
I actually feel bad for George.
Next question I have for you is if you were George Russell today, what do you have up your sleeves if you're George today?
If I was George, I'm pretty sure he has an agent, right? I would talk to my agent and be like, hey, I know this is the situation I'm in. Look into teams like Aston Martin, for example, because I feel like Aston Martin is one team we can talk about a lot. Yes, we might say new is overhyped, but we've seen the improvements that they've done in just like 2 races, right?
Because the car is picking up. The car is picking up, I agree.
Exactly. And we don't know what they're cooking up for next year, which is what new is fully focused on. And like,
Yes.
okay, there's hope, right? Fernando is getting old. He might not be with the team beyond 2 years, right? You might be a reserve driver for a year. It might suck, but or you might be lucky and like maybe Lawrence feels like, okay, yeah,
I'm not
Alonso,
doing this anymore.
yes,
Lawrence can wake up and say I'm not doing this anymore too. But
exactly.
then if the whole premise of Aston Martin is because the billionaire wants to see his son race, will he still be in the race when his son is not racing?
So he's basically going to everywhere that he's not going to be loved. Or he pitches to Red Bull, hey, make me number one driver.
Yeah, I actually like the Red Bull idea. What if we do a swap deal in football? A lot of teams swap players. They do a swap deal, buy a clubs, cancel out. Like why can't Red Bull take George
Uh,
and
However,
because the issue with that before when we had this conversation before. The issue with that before was Christian is not such a fan of George. Now there is no Christian. In fact, the team principal now is so much into building a legacy. He needs to stamp his name because the shoes he's filling is the biggest shoe in the team. He needs to stamp his name, and he's not worked with a superstar yet. Throughout his career, he's not really, really, really worked with someone we can call a superstar. George could be that project for him.
however, the current Red Bull car, as we know,
Is undrivable.
no, it's not on. The thing is, people say the car is not undrivable.
It's designed around Max.
I don't even use design around Max because it feels like I'm like negating all the other drivers, right? That car can only be driven by Max. The car is drivable, but can only be driven by Max. I think that's a very good way to look at it. Terrible
Alex
job.
Albon literally had the best points, the best finishes, aside Checo. And you need to understand that Alex Albon is from the 2019 set, right? And my theory is given enough time, because again, what was happening with all of these people was after 2, 3 races, get out, right? Given enough races and a signed contract that I'm actually going to be here for at least 3 years, we can actually watch a rebuild happen. I know the car is difficult and Max is I personally think the car was designed around Max, personally, right? But I think that all of that is just 2025. In 2026, there's going to be a change. Again, remember 2026, rules change, there's going to be a change. And I feel like Red Bull needs a project. There are two things that are factual today. One is Max does not want to leave. Do you know how funny the concept of leaving Red Bull was to Max in 2019? He even posted a picture of Toto calling Toto.
Because
Toto has always been Toto has always been up Max axe. I think Toto sees Max as the next project that could be as successful as Lewis. Cars are changing, things are happening. First of all, you need a superstar and you need a project. Every team is actually going to get into a project from next year, right? Even the McLarens. So it brings me to the thought that George would actually be perfectly suited for this new team principal and the project of Red Bull next year because the car is going to change. So the excuse of the car being designed around Max could literally not exist in 2026.
And considering the fact that they're building a new power unit, so yeah, next year will be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of George, right? But I really do wish him the best. This is a very, very terrible situation to be in.
And he's stepped up. Let's actually take a moment to talk about the fact that he stepped up as a driver.
Mhm.
Coming off the back of Lewis to become the first driver on the team today, to holding it down points wise. He's gotten every possible point that car could get in 2025. He's gotten every possible point. Like, that is unheard of. And it's just unfortunate. It's just like how we had amazing players in football in the time of Messi and Ronaldo, right? That has done amazing things. That's what's happening. It feels like because the McLarens are too fast, too good, we're not recognizing some of the greatest, some of the best possible driving, some of the best driving has actually been happening this year. Like some people, and of course we'll get to some of them soon. We'll get to actually the British Grand Prix very soon. But some amazing things have been happening, and George, as a leader, has stepped up. You see how he supports Kimi. I've literally watched a lot of testing or qualifying that is like, can he come and join the team to push the car? Can he come? Like, he's literally always supporting. He's always bringing him under his arm. Kimi is having a good time. Kimi doesn't feel like he's in competition. It feels like a brotherly love going on. He's stepped up as a leader. He's stepped up as a driver also. Like, his racecraft is solid. He's the only driver today on the grid that could stand up to Max Verstappen. He's actually like people keep talking about
You don't mean on track now. You mean like in person, right? Or
person, like their personalities. Also on track, of course, his car cannot, right? Yeah. But if he has the machinery, he's the type of driver because look at the McLarens, they literally have anxiety anytime Max is P2 or P3 or someone behind them. Like George is one driver that could take it to Max on track, outside of track. Tell me what you're thinking.
the exception to this McLaren rule is Oscar. Oscar actually stands up to Max.
I I I I
Actually,
think
it does
I
like
think I think Oscar tries. I think Oscar tries. I think maybe because the personality side of things is not coming out. I
yeah.
think
Oscar has only made one mistake this year with Max, and that was in Italy, Imola. That's the only time like Max. And to be fair, if you look at Oscar, this is just his third year in F1. So oh yeah, he messed up. He didn't cover Max. He was more focused on George. Like I don't think he will make that mistake next time because in Miami he outclassed Max. In Jeddah, he put the Max on Max. So yeah, let's give Oscar his flowers. Like he
I
actually.
would, I'm currently not in the right books with Oscar at the
I
moment.
know, same to me.
I have my reasons, which we'll talk about when we talk about the race. But yeah, I think the next thing I wanted us to talk about today is, or I would talk about today is one of the things we want to always highlight on the podcast is um no DRS. What no DRS means to us is, when the speed is not on, when the dust has settled, who are the people that make sure that, this sport is amazing? Who are the people behind the scenes that make sure that we're having a good time? Who are the people that are working tirelessly? We have a lot of people, from the engineering side of things to the marketing side of things. And today I want to highlight someone called Charles. He was with the McLaren team for 6 years as one of the content creators, photographers, making videos, taking some of the best shots you've seen in a lot of the posters of the wins, of the podiums. You're going to see his information on the screen now. And we're giving a big shout out to Charles, as we'll be doing in a lot of our episodes, because no DRS for us means when you are not speeding, when we are not driving to survive, who are these people? Who are the people who are making these sports? Who are the people whose collective strengths we are standing on to have great weekends in every race weekend, right? And Charles is one of those people. His time at McLaren has now ended. I think he'll probably be moving to another team. Or wish him the best and wish him well in all his journeys. So yeah, so thank you so much, Charles. And now to the next session, the British Grand Prix.
I have one shout out to make to Lance Senna. You know, Lance Stroll usually shines when like the rain is pouring. I don't know how he does it. So why he does it? Like he just like
He's a wet merchant. He's a wet merchant. Lance is
hey,
one of the wet merchants, yeah.
and before we like go on to speak more about like the whole race, I need to, yeah, I think the first episode I said that Lance is actually a good driver.
I
Lance is
agree.
Lance is a really good driver. I feel like he just doesn't have interest in the sports. Like I feel like he just like I'm driving this for my dad. Like, yeah.
He's too comfortable. I think Lance has it in him to be a solid second driver in any team and getting points every weekend or every other weekend, right?
I
Lance has that potential. Hmm?
have a controversial opinion.
Yeah,
I feel
please.
like Lance is world champion material if he reforms a few things. Like if you watch his wet races, there's a way he drives with some like
He's a wet merchant. He doesn't believe in the risk of the rain. He's a wet merchant.
so I feel like if he actually has that mentality all around, it's more grounded and like he will actually be world champion material.
I don't think Lance Stroll is world champion material in any way. I think so less of wet races for us to make that. I feel like that is such a big statement to make. I personally think that Lance has what it takes to be a great driver. Lance has what it takes to um get points every other weekend. I just think Lance is comfortable, and it makes me think about upbringing and all of these drivers who had the worst of upbringing. Like, look at George's upbringing and races. Like, you see the similarity between, like, there's there's a lot of things that will give you, again, we've talked about this before in this podcast, about there are things that make you world driver champion material, right? One of them is character. I don't think Lance even has any kind of character in that regard. Another thing is racecraft. You have to be able to be a defender, like an actual defender on the racetrack.
All things you mentioned goes down to I think he doesn't have interest in the sport. But hey, Nico podium finally. That's one good highlight from the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the McLaren boys. The podium celebration was awkward. I expected more. Like I was like when national anthem went up, I was expecting like both of them to like douse Nico. And I was watching this belief. I was like, I was shouting, spray him, spray him.
Really? They made it so weird because there was already a lot of weird things about the weekend. There was already the fact that the trophies were Legos. The trophies, how were the trophies in this particular race Legos, right?
You've taken sponsorship too far.
I was a wireless and Drake was dressed like an F1 driver. Like he had a jacket or like a short sleeve jacket, like a vest on, and they were just like the way my shirt is like it just logos everywhere. And I'm just like, this sponsorship thing is crazy because like purely out of Lego, like come on. And then there were things you expect. This person had never been on the podium before, ever in I think over 190 something races, right? And so it,
200.
yeah,
200. I think I'm
it's
not a Lando fan. I think Lando was the only one that did maybe something right-ish. Nico didn't know he was to bring his helmet to like the cool down room. The Lando brought it up for him. Yeah, okay, maybe.
yeah, that was good. That was good
I
because
don't know if it was the steward that said, "Hey, take this," or if it's like, "Hey, where's
I
Nico's?"
remember I remember he was even asking like, "You guys get free water here?" Like it's never been here. It's never been here for fuck's sake. And they were so Oscar was so pissed. Oscar was never looking. Everybody, and then Lando was just in his own euphoria. Everybody, I'm just like, see, this person has never been here before, bro. This is a polar bear in Arlington, Texas. Like, he's never been here before.
The
And
kick, the
I
kick
was like, you
after
know
that, you
what?
tweeted
Cool down room is
that.
cool down room. I was like, you know what? Cool down room is cool down room. I understand. When the champagne come, I know they'll do. I remember Lewis, the celebration when he turned his back and his tattoos, and Max knew what to like. This is the podium you will wish this was Lewis and Max because they would know what to do. They would drown you. Like, do you know what it means to be on a podium? He's gone his whole career. He's left the sports. He's come back. Like, so he could have literally got
Painted
a career
his career
without,
and
do you know how crazy it is? I watched his daughter, like, his daughter, like, they have this account on Instagram, and I watched his daughter, like, come on, that was such a great moment. And they literally, Oscar was just pissed. Lando was on his own world. Everybody was just, no one sprayed him. And the thing is, he's never been there. So, because if it was someone else that has at least been on the podium, they would be like, they would go, he would have gone to spray them and then they would in turn spray him, right? But he's
yeah.
never been there. So he's just there, like, okay, what do I do? Bruh. Like, do you know there's just a series of never been theirs that's happened?
Uh,
Saba as a team didn't even have champagne
yeah.
because they never expect, like, this is something that in their strategy for months and weeks they never ever put into consideration that, oh, like that's not a possibility for them. Like it gives you a breakdown of how things work in these smaller teams where they are planning for things the way we are killing ourselves about the top teams. These people cannot even, their plan is to just, can we just get to a point where we get extra $6 million for our team?
I think
Like,
their plan is just bring the car back home. Don't
like
crash.
bring like, bruh, it was crazy, and it was a huge moment. And I want to say congrats to Nico Hülkenberg. I think that was an amazing race. I remember watching the highlights and how he literally did the opposite of
Oh, whatever I think told you.
everything his strategy told him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't box here. Could you just stay out? No, I'd like to box here. Could you just no? He literally objected every single instruction he was given, and he brought the car. And that is to me what a great driver is. A great driver knows better. And I'm sorry to mention the McLaren as a team, but you hear you hear a lot about a driver driving and asking questions. Oh, like what do I do now? And what do I is wanting to ask questions, wanting to know because the people in your ears are your eyes because you can only see in front of you, right? However, there's also the sensibilities of it. Like there's this saying that we'll never forget, and that is Max will know. There's this podcast that Lando was on some years ago, and the host just asked him, how much does your car weigh? And he's like, he didn't know. And the host of the podcast was, first of all, a huge fan of Lando, looks up to Lando. So he was so disappointed, so pained. He looked at him and said, Max would know. Max knows everything about his car. Max would know. And that is what a driver is. No shade. That is what a driver should be. And that was Mega Drive, I think from P17 all the way to P3.
The McLarens are not as fast as they were. He'll be P1.
Yeah.
That's how good of a drive he drove.
Yeah. It was a massive Mega Drive. Like, I'm so proud of him. So first off, congratulations to Lando Norris. Winning the British Grand Prix is no child's play. My best race still of in last 5 years is still the last year's. No, my second best race. My best years in the last 5 years was, of course, Monaco, Charles. But my second best race in the last 5 years is still Lewis winning Grand Prix last year. I think that was magical. I think I've not seen like it was just magical. That's just the word to explain it, right? And so being able to do that, this year, no matter what the circumstances are, a winner is a winner. And Lando Norris really deserved that win. And as a British lad, it was really, really good to see him winning that. They've looked forward to that for lots and lots of years. And again, you need to always remember that for every win, I know we're used to them winning, the McLaren boys winning, but this win is a really, really special win. It's a home win for the team. It's a home win for Lando. It's something they have wished for, wanted for years, and they finally did it.
First of all, I just want to point out that the penalty was very unfair because that has happened so many times in the past. And Oscar magically is the first one to get a penalty for it. I don't have a problem with the penalty. Okay, fine. We want to dish out a penalty to Oscar for breaking on that safety car.
What does the rule book say? Because I think the rule book allows them to penalize up to 10 seconds for that, and that's the thing. So I think we can debate. I think we can debate about what's fair, what's not fair, but I think at the end of the day, rules are rules. I think the argument that he made, that you are also making here, is, this has happened before, this has happened a lot of times. Why is it now that you're penalizing me? I think that is on the FIA to literally watch the races. Because my argument is the FIA does not work. In fact, I will tell you that 70% of the penalties that happen that are not crashes, I would even wager you 90% of the penalties that happen on track that are not crashes are reported by Max Verstappen alone. My argument is the FIA does not watch these matches. They do not have people that are actually watching these things to make sure the rules are kept, right? And I think that is unfortunate. And so on days like this where something is caught and something is reported, it feels foreign because they never do their job, right? But I don't think it removes from the fact that it is their job and the penalties were within the rule book. What I think we should be saying is the FIA should penalize people more because a lot of people do this. A lot of people break under safety cars. A lot of people break even in unsafe ways under safety cars. Why are they not penalized much?
I think my conclusion with this is I'm going to also mention something very controversial. When the penalty doesn't favor, I'm not gonna say it, they do not dish it out. And I've seen it happen in 5 races now. But when the penalty favors,
Can
they
you
dish it
just mention the names of the people you're talking about?
out. They call it British bias, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going by the rule book, George should have had a penalty in Canada.
Hmm.
I remember the last race where someone did the same thing on that safety car,
Hmm.
a penalty.
Hmm.
But yeah, fine. Oh, wow. Because if without the penalty, Oscar would have won that race by a good margin.
That is true.
So all of a sudden, it became very convenient to dish out 10 seconds, knowing that, oh, yeah. Because I don't know, someone said, oh, yeah, this race is Lando's race to win. I was like, why are you saying that, right? It's anyone's race to win. Well, there's a whole Lando stand, there's a whole narrative around it. So it felt like even the organizers or people just Lando win fit the narrative, fits the story because it would have been
It's a
really
beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. You think about it. What if you were Zach Brown? You're literally an empty seat. Who would you have loved to win the British Grand Prix? Is Lando too, if you think about it, because it's a British one too, right? And I know that sounds very biased because the best driver should always win, right? But the thing is, none of these had anything to do with the McLaren team. This is FIA, which brings me to one of the, I would say, in my opinion, the stupidest thing Piastri has ever done that I hold a grudge against him for. Why would you get a penalty you thought was unfair from FIA? You turn around, you see your teammate is ahead of you, and then you tell the team,
and position.
could you consider just telling him to wait so I could pass him just because? Like, does that make any sense? This is the kind of thing I would expect Lando to say, right? Character-wise, character-wise, I think, or I used to think, that Oscar had a very superior character. Seeing
Fair, to be very fair. I think this is the first time we've seen Oscar really angry. But I think this is the very first time when he felt like, shit, I feel cheated. And, he's really pissed. And for a lot of people, when they have those kind of emotions for the first time, they don't know how to behave. Like, they don't, like, what am I feeling? Because if you notice, immediately they told him, oh, you have a 10-second penalty. He was driving, in fact, he was practically replaying the F1 movie when Sonny Hayes was driving angry and he almost lost the car, if you remember. Oscar was driving angry. And that was the first time I was seeing Oscar like behaving that much.
again, I understand the frustration. What I don't understand is the ask. I think this year is also his best year ever. He's really, really, really stepped up. And I think this is the point where I say the McLaren team is one of the funniest teams I've ever seen in this sport. The fact that they have still not been able to say this guy is our number one driver and this guy is a support driver till now is crazy to me because it is now at a point where I don't even think they can make that choice again. Like they're now too far gone, too close to each other.
If Oscar was the one that crashed in Canada, they would have made Lando the number one driver.
Do you know what? I believe you. And this is where I'm coming from. I actually agree that the team, if you think about how Oscar got into the team, he didn't go through any kind of academy. It was some kind of ego dick measuring contest that actually got him into the team, right? And how Lando got into the team, how Lando has been with the team throughout all the bad times. A lot of Lando fans feel that Oscar's current rise to be the number one driver, which he still is is undeserved. It should be Lando. Lando is the one that suffered with the team. There's this feeling of, suffered with the team. Now is our glory time. Lando should be on top of that. Who the fuck, where the fuck was Oscar when we were suffering all those years? But this is a sport. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. Hope is not a strategy. If your driver is good, he would be number one, right? And Lando is showing that he is good too. I think for me, in the beginning of the season, I was of the opinion that Oscar was better than Lando. Now that we are nearing the middle of the season, I am of the opinion that none of them have proved shit to me. I'm of the opinion that the both of them are very close to each other. I think what would decide who is world driver champion this year is someone who would stand up for themselves, make a choice for themselves, refuse to receive support from anyone else, right? That is seemingly looking to be Oscar, especially with the way
And you know
things
what?
are going now.
Yeah. I feel like Oscar for the next couple of races will be like, you know what? I'm going to take the base strategy, but if it doesn't make sense during the race, I'm going to do what's on my mind. Because I think Oscar has practically saying that the team, it's not that the team doesn't love him, right? But they will
But the
always
team
feel,
prefers Lando, but we don't
yeah,
name Lando number one driver. I think that's my issue. And the reason is because the team knows that it doesn't seem like Lando has all it takes to be the number one driver. Whether or not, let's say they picked Lando, whether or not Lando is the best driver, pick Lando, it means all the machinery, including the second driver, gets to support Lando. It means Lando inadvertently becomes better than he should be because now every support is pouring his direction, including second driver. Having two first drivers is a funny strategy for me. I understand they're getting away with it now because their car is way too fast that a driver can actually not finish and it doesn't affect the order of things in the driver championship. Do you understand how crazy that is? Let me say that again. Two drivers, one of the drivers at the top of this game could actually crash and not finish a race, and it will not affect standings.
yeah,
That gap is almost criminal. I don't think people fully understand what that means. That means we could afford two, three, four more crashes, and the order doesn't change that much. And then for me, I feel like what I agree with you that the team, especially I think the fans even favor Lando over Oscar. I understand the history of things. However, I feel like um you should be favoring your best driver. And I feel like the next two races should tell us who the best driver is between the both of them. So I'm very curious to see what will happen in Spa. I'm very curious to see what will happen in the rest of the places. And I hope that McLaren uses the next few races to actually name their first driver and support. The thing is, because it's just like the penalty, right? If a driver felt cheated, you would see the team. The team is supposed to go out there and argue your points for you, no matter how stupid it is, right? But in a case where it is your home race and one of the drivers won the home race, who is there in the paddock instead of spraying champagne somewhere else to go argue your case for you? So I imagine Oscar felt so lonely, so alone in the last race. You know what? It's just wrong timing.
Lando just needs one more crash to write it off.
Why do you think that Oscar wouldn't crash? Can't you? I don't think you fully understand the fact that Lando crashed once and now he's 8 points different. Do you understand how that what that means?
Yeah,
If we on the table, would that be the same case for Oscar today? Like I feel which is what I mean by I think that the distance between them is for me non-negligible. Like I cannot in good faith say Oscar is a better driver today. I can't. None of them are. They need to prove it to us. That's kind of how I feel. This brings us to our last point of discussion, which is summer break is coming soon. What do we think about the teams and the drivers?
I'm going to start with racing bulls. They
Racing
had it,
bulls.
yeah, big car. They had the bad British Grand Prix, which is sad. Well, if you exclude that, I think Aja is a really good driver. Lawson is coming up to speed. After it's his dramatic first half of the season. Um, Saba, yeah, cooking. If you look beyond Nico's podium, the car has been coming alive. Like
Yeah,
we see it top
yeah.
10 15s. That's a good sight. Williams, I don't know what they did to their cars. It feels like everything went upside down.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the recent changes in the last two races have been quite terrible for them.
I don't know what's wrong with Alpine, to be honest.
Think- Can I say something about Alpine? I think Gasly has been having a mega season with Alpine. Just like I said, if there was a point to be got from the Mercedes, George got every single point out of that car this year. The same with
Same,
Alpine.
same
Gasly
P.
has gotten every single possible point that could be gotten from that shit box. Gasly has gotten every single one of it.
Also, Colapinto is having a terrible season. It feels like
It's
Duhan.
like it's worse than Duan. Yeah.
I feel like Duhan is the better choice. And I'm not gonna speak more on Alpine. Mercedes, I'm not gonna speak much on Kimi. Kimi is doing his best. He has just had some missteps as a rookie. His DNF in Imola, his crash in Austria, Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, like we've spoken on George before, so I'm not gonna speak on George anymore. But Mercedes as a team, yeah, I think they've done something good with the car. They just need to do a bit more. Now, McLaren, they are the star boys of the season, the star team. But we have two drivers that are really good. But the first part of the season, one seemed to be really good than the other. The other one had a crash in Canada and locked in. And won three races back to back. Is it two or three? He won Monaco, the British Grand Prix. What is the other one that might be
Yeah, I
missing?
think it's two.
He won Austria as well.
Yeah.
Three. So bad. So for the second half of the season, we on Team Oscar, we need Oscar to lock in. Well, whatever he did in the first few races of the season, winning four races back to back, he needs to do it.
Let's even
Just
assume your team hates you. Okay, right? Just get these wins yourself. It's the only thing that matters. Win is the only thing that matters. No matter how, it doesn't matter how you win. And I think that's the thing. I think he's still in that whole things have to work in a fair. Nothing is fair.
he needs to pull a Nico, mess up qualifying so Lando doesn't pull a faster lap. That kind of stuff.
Whatever he needs to do, he needs to start thinking outside of the box and be like, if this is like there's been crashes between them, they're going to crash some more. We're literally in the middle of the season. So it means they're the fastest car. So what that means is this person, you keep crashing into this person throughout the year. So you need to change is either you are so far ahead or you actually learn to be a battle driver.
What actually made me a fan was Azerbaijan Baku 2024. And from that race, I am Team Oscar. He chased Charles to lap 20 or lap 24. He overtook Charles. The first few defenses he took on Charles, like, what the hell is this guy doing? He held off Charles to the point where both cars were going sideways on turn one. No, he is a good defensive driver.
He's a good defensive driver. He needs to prove that he is not just a great battle driver, defender. He needs to prove that he's a great defender for the same machinery. You need to make sure that the way Lando sees Max is the way he sees you. That he should be afraid to try to battle you. He should be afraid to try to overtake you. Let's see. I'm very, very close. I think the next two races are going to say a lot. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. This has been amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. And we will see you again in the next No DRS podcasts. And so remember to stay safe. And if you have not seen the F1 movie, you need to see it. I really love the original soundtrack, especially the Obong Jaya record. So it's also available in all the streaming platforms. So you need to go see the movie. It's really, really a fun one to see. Even if you're an OG F1 fan, you should go see the movie. I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next one.